Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to say we're joined by Sheila Steffenson, CEO for 1Spatial Inc. For 1Spatial, for those that don't know, is a global leader in providing location master data management, or LMDM, software and solutions. And the company seems to be building momentum in recent months with a string of contract wins, particularly in the US. So Sheila's here, has joined us today to discuss the trends that she's seeing in her geography. So Sheila, welcome. Great to have you here.
Great, thank you, Dan.
So Sheila, first up, I think maybe if you could talk a little bit, just briefly, if you would, about the background of the US business and your personal background.
Yeah, so I came to 1Spatial about 5 years ago after 30 plus years in the geospatial industry. I spent about 23 of those years with Esri, the world leader in GIS. And the business here in the US is very focused on software with services to support the software implementation. So we focus on data management, improving data quality, ensuring data quality, using our One Integrate rules engine to support the clients that we work with.
As I alluded to, 1Spatial has announced several high-profile wins in the US over the last 12 months. Could you talk about the momentum that you're seeing in the business currently?
Yeah, it was really interesting, especially through 2020 and considering everything that year brought to us. And yet we still managed to grow by 29%. And those sales came from multiple clients, better than 30 in that year, which is a far cry from where we started 5 years ago with just 1 or 2 clients. I think that, we actually even landed one of our bigger opportunities in 2020 with the state of Michigan, which is a 5-year contract for about $2.5 million. And so again, the momentum has really started to pick up. We're seeing a lot of repeatable solutions too. So like in the case of Michigan, it's a spatial data infrastructure. It's something that a lot of other states are looking at. And there's other repeatable solutions like next generation 911. There's also highway performance monitoring that we do with a number of states. And so we're starting to see, again, that momentum just pick up. And if you consider that it's usually about a year or maybe a little longer than a year on the sales cycle, it's pretty impressive where we feel this will take us.
Oh, great to hear. And what do you see as the reason for that momentum? Is this? I mean, you mentioned you were trading well through COVID, but are you beginning to see some sort of recovery as economic activity picks up? Is this a post-election sort of trend that you're also seeing in recent months, or are there sort of more structural trends at play that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that's really important over here and is really gaining ground within organizations is the need for data governance. And so with COVID, the beginning of the year was a little, sort of questionable. People were not really sure where things were going to go or how they were going to manage. But I think that within like just a month or two, they really started to say, you know what? We can pivot, we can work from home, we can do this. And in fact, what we saw was an increase in meetings. It was an increase because people had more time. And so we were getting in front of more people. There was a broader interest. And so I think that all of that helped our year, help us end where we did. And I think that also the election caused a tiny bit of a pause too, because then there was this uncertainty was what's going to be next. And now that election has passed by, people are calmer and things are just, again, continuing to move. So I feel like, again, this momentum is just, we have several on the opportunities on the horizon that we're working on closing now, and we see nothing but blue sky ahead.
And 1Spatial as a whole has often referred to its sort of land and expand strategy. And you've alluded already to the good success that you've had in California. and driving up revenues with established clients. Could you maybe talk about how that strategy plays out in more detail in the US and evidence of where that's been successful?
Yeah, land and expand has always been my motto. I think from day one, I started talking at 1Spatial about the huge opportunity for land and expand, because basically it's breaking into an account and then moving across that account, because problems don't exist just in one area. They tend to exist across the organization, and there's a need for data quality at an enterprise level. And so in California, it's especially interesting because our start there was a little different than normal, because our actual first client in California was Google in the real estate worldwide services. And obviously that's something that got a lot of people noticing. But then we were able to break into at Ventura County, which is a fairly good sized county. And that got noticed by LA County, who then picked it up. And then after that, as I mentioned, we do a lot of work in the transportation entity, and Caltrans, which is really one of the largest transportation organizations across the US, has an incredible program focused on data governance. So we started showing them the capabilities and how we could help them with their enterprise data governance, and they took off. And then following that, between Caltrans and also LA County, California Office of Emergency Services took notice of us and noticed some of the work we're doing with regard to next generation 911. And then that all came to fruition. And so now we're implementing their validation for their 911 system. And very interestingly, off of this, California is a very collaborative state. And so word of mouth works. And off of that, we recently held a presentation where we had the Geographic Information Officer from LA County, and we had the Data Governance Officer from Caltrans, and we had the State Geographic Information Officer, and also the lead for the Office of Emergency Services. And they all came together and talked about data governance and its import in collaboration, which was a very successful presentation.
Thank you. And so what's the reason for your success, as it were? What's the differentiation in 1Spatial's product that's enabling you to kind of get into these contracts?
There's a lot of companies here in the US that for many years have been focused on the use of data and the really good applications that you can utilize to analyze data. But when I first joined 1Spatial 5 years ago, I joined because I saw what they had, and I had been in the geospatial industry for better than 30 years. And when I saw the tools, I realized this was the missing piece, because we focus strictly on the data management and ensuring that that data is going to be reliable to used to make decisions and make critical decisions most of the time. And there's just not a lot of focus on that by other organizations, and especially in the spatial arena. Managing spatial data, ensuring its quality is a lot more challenging than your average tabular data. And there's another thing too that is unique about our tools, and it's the way they're architected, because the way that they are built enables us to work with really large organizations with really large databases, complicated data rules, and be able to implement those in a very efficient and a very effective way, which many organizations have tried other things before, but haven't been successful. And that's why we're able to work with such clients like Google and work with Federal Highways or NOAA or Census, because they deal with really large data that has a lot of challenges.
Well, thank you for that answer, and thank you for your time today. That's been really interesting to find out what the momentum and the details of what's behind your good performance over the last 12 months. So thank you, Sheila Steffenson.
Thank you, Dan. My pleasure.